There are days in a celebrity's life that pass unnoticed, hidden in the blur of rehearsals, photoshoots, and endless scripts. But then, there are days that the world cannot help but notice. For Shu Kai, that day arrived quietly on a warm evening when he stood outside an apartment complex in Beijing, an apartment that, unbeknownst to most, belonged to none other than actress Tan Songyun. At first, it seemed like an ordinary evening in the neighborhood. Families walked their dogs, kids played by the swings, and elders carried groceries from the nearby market. Yet, there was something unusual: a tall, striking figure dressed in casual clothes, a baseball cap pulled low, standing just a little too long by the gate. His presence was subtle, but his energy drew attention like a magnet. Some slowed their steps, others exchanged glances. Whispers began. "It's Shu Kai, isn't it?" a teenage girl muttered to her friend, clutching her phone like she'd just uncovered the plot of her favorite drama. It didn't take long before neighbors confirmed what their eyes couldn't ignore. It was indeed Shu Kai, the man who commanded screens with his towering presence and piercing gaze. But what was he doing there outside Tan Songyun's apartment of all places? The waiting began innocently enough. Shu Kai leaned casually against a tree, as though simply enjoying the summer breeze. But an hour passed. Then too. People started noticing that he wasn't leaving. He kept glancing toward the building, his expression unreadable, half nervous, half determined. The whispers grew louder. Someone filmed from their balcony. Another texted a friend. Before long, a quiet buzz ran through the community like wildfire. Shu Kai is waiting for Tan Songyun. For fans who had followed the pair's rumored chemistry over the years, this was no small thing. Their on-screen collaborations had sparked gossip before, their laughter at press events had raised eyebrows, but never had there been something this direct, this bold. Shu Kai wasn't at a red carpet. He wasn't at a studio. He was standing outside her home. The scene took on an almost cinematic quality. Streetlights flickered on, casting golden halos around him. A soft drizzle began to fall, the kind that clung to his jacket and left dark patches on the sidewalk. Yet Shu Kai didn't move. He checked his phone once or twice, typed something, deleted it, then slipped it back into his pocket. His body language screamed of a man caught between pride and vulnerability. A neighbor in her 50s, who lived directly across from Tan Songyun, later said in hushed tones, "I've never seen someone like that, so tall, so well known, yet standing there like any other man, waiting for someone he cared about." It wasn't about fame in that moment. It was about feeling. And indeed, what Shu Kai did next proved it. After nearly 3 hours of waiting, he finally stepped closer to the entrance. He looked up toward the 5th floor where Tan Songyun's apartment was known to be. For a fleeting second, he lifted his hand, as though imagining knocking on her door, but stopped. Instead, he leaned against the rail by the entrance, his eyes fixed on the building like he was silently speaking to her through the walls. By now, the neighbors were no longer just observers, they were participants in a story unfolding right in front of them. Phones came out, not to harass, but to document what felt like a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Some even felt protective, shushing others from getting too close, respecting the quiet intensity of the scene. When Tan Songyun finally appeared, it was like the climax of a drama no one had expected to see live. She walked out of the lobby in a loose cardigan, her hair tied up, clearly unprepared for the small crowd that had gathered. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Shu Kai, but then softened in a way only two people with history could understand. The neighbors held their breath. Was this going to be a confrontation? A confession? Or something in between? Shu Kai straightened immediately, his calm facade cracking for just a second. He looked at her as though he'd been rehearsing this moment in his head but had lost the script. Tan Songyun tilted her head, a half-smile playing at her lips, as though amused by his awkwardness but touched by his persistence. Without a word, Shu Kai handed her something, a small paper bag, dampened slightly by the drizzle. Inside, it seemed, was nothing extravagant. No diamonds, no designer brands. Just a handwritten letter and a small trinket box, later rumored to be a music box. The neighbors couldn't see the details, but the intimacy of the gesture spoke louder than anything. Tan Songyun's expression shifted, first surprise, then something unguarded, almost tender. She didn't speak loudly, But the few words that drifted into the quiet night carried weight. "You waited, all this time?" Shu Kai nodded once, his lips curling into the faintest smile. For the neighbors, that was all it took. The air buzzed with suppressed excitement, as though everyone had just witnessed a secret too big to keep. Some exchanged knowing looks, others bit their lips to stop themselves from squealing out loud. They knew what they saw would soon become the talk of social media, yet they also knew they had witnessed something real, unpolished, and raw. The two stood there for what felt like forever, caught in their own bubble. Eventually, Tan Songyun gestured for him to follow her inside. Shu Kai hesitated only briefly before stepping forward, disappearing with her into the building. The door closed, but the story had only just begun. That night, the neighborhood couldn't sleep. WeChat groups buzzed with speculation, photos, and hushed accounts of what they had seen. Some argued it was just a friendly gesture, others swore it was the beginning of something bigger. What no one could deny was the look on Shu Kai's face, a look that spoke of a man willing to put pride aside, willing to stand in the rain, just to make sure his feelings reached someone he couldn't ignore. And that, perhaps, is why the story spread far beyond that apartment complex. Fans on social media began piecing together timelines. Why had Shu Kai shown up that day? Was it after an argument? A missed opportunity? Or was it a long overdue confession finally finding its voice? While the truth remains known only to Shu Kai and Tan Songyun, one thing is certain: the day Shu Kai waited outside her apartment became more than just gossip. It became a story of vulnerability in the face of fame, of neighbors becoming accidental witnesses to a private moment, of two people standing at the crossroads of friendship and something more. And for those who saw it unfold in real time, it felt less like celebrity drama and more like life imitating the kind of romance usually reserved for the screen. Because sometimes, the most powerful scenes are not scripted, not rehearsed, not filmed. Sometimes, they happen on a rainy evening, outside an apartment, when one man refuses to walk away until his heart is heard. If the first whispers of Shu Kai's presence outside Tan Songyun's apartment felt like a scene straight out of a drama, what followed was even more captivating. By the time Shu Kai had been waiting for nearly 3 hours, the entire apartment block had turned into an unintentional stage. Curtains swayed as neighbors peeked out from windows. Some residents had even gathered at the edge of the courtyard, pretending to take evening strolls but unable to hide their curious eyes. One neighbor, an elderly man walking his dog, muttered under his breath, "That young man has the patience of a soldier. In this city, people don't wait for buses this long, yet here he is, waiting for her." Shu Kai barely moved. His tall figure looked like a lone sentinel, unwavering under the drizzle. At one point, he pulled out a small umbrella from his bag, but he didn't open it. Instead, he tilted his face upward, letting the raindrops touch his skin. It was as though he wanted the discomfort, as though every drop of rain mirrored the weight of the words he hadn't yet spoken. From across the street, a group of young girls recognized him instantly. "It's Shu Kai," one whispered excitedly, her phone already raised to snap a photo. But as they zoomed in, they noticed something unusual, not the glamorous star they were used to, but a man stripped down to raw simplicity. No bodyguards, no entourage, no flashing smile. Just Shu Kai, nervous, vulnerable, human. And then came the pivotal moment that made everyone hold their breath. Tan Songyun's living room light flicked on. From the 5th floor, her silhouette appeared briefly by the window before she disappeared again. Shu Kai's head snapped upward the instant he noticed, his eyes searching the glowing window as though silently pleading, "Please, just look at me once." The neighbors felt the shift instantly. It was no longer about a celebrity waiting, it was about a man's quiet battle against time and fear. Minutes later, the lobby door creaked open. Songyun stepped out, her cardigan wrapped tightly around her, hair slightly damp as though she had hurriedly washed before coming down. Her steps slowed when she saw him. For the people watching, that moment was electricity in its purest form, two figures meeting under streetlights, framed by drizzle and the heavy weight of unspoken words. Shu Kai moved first. He took one hesitant step forward, then another, until he stood just in front of her. He didn't rush, didn't overwhelm. Instead, he extended the small paper bag, his hand trembling ever so slightly. Songyun looked at it, then at him. Her voice was soft, almost teasing, but filled with warmth. "You're crazy. You've been here all this time?" Shu Kai let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His lips curved into a small, sheepish smile. "I didn't know how else to make sure you'd listen," he said quietly. The neighbors leaned closer, desperate not to miss a single word. Some pressed their palms against their chests, others exchanged wide-eyed glances, as though they were all extras in a scene too powerful to forget. Songyun opened the bag slightly, revealing the music box inside. She turned it gently in her hands, her expression unreadable. The drizzle tapped against the box like a soft percussion, as though nature itself was adding to the soundtrack. "What if I never came down?" she asked, her eyes lifting to meet his. Shu Kai's reply was immediate, steady, and stunningly raw. "Then I would have kept waiting. All night if I had to." The collective gasp from the neighbors was almost audible. Even the teenage girls, who moments ago were giggling behind their phones, fell completely silent. This wasn't an idol's rehearsed line, it was a confession etched straight from the heart. Songyun didn't speak at first. She simply stared at him, and in that silence, the world felt suspended. Then, almost unconsciously, she reached out and brushed the damp hair from his forehead. The gesture was fleeting but intimate enough to send shockwaves through everyone watching. One woman on the second floor whispered into her phone, "I swear, I just saw her touch his face. This isn't a drama. This is real." Shu Kai's shoulders finally seemed to relax. For hours, he had carried the tension of waiting, of not knowing. Now, with one touch, everything changed. Yet what made the moment unforgettable wasn't just the interaction between the two, it was how the neighbors reacted. Instead of intruding, they became silent witnesses, like an audience that knew not to interrupt a masterpiece. A man even turned off his balcony light to give them more privacy. Another shushed her kids, whispering, "This is something special. Don't ruin it." Finally, Songyun whispered something only those closest could hear. "Come upstairs. You're soaked." The neighbors exchanged looks of triumph, as if they had just been let in on the greatest secret in the entertainment world. Shu Kai nodded once, his smile breaking into something genuine, unguarded. And then, for the first time that night, he allowed himself to step forward, not toward the waiting, not toward hesitation, but toward her. The two disappeared into the building, the heavy door clicking shut behind them. But the echoes of that night remained long after. People would later argue about what exactly happened inside. Did they talk for hours? Did they laugh, cry, confess? No one knew for certain. But what everyone agreed on was this: the scene they had witnessed outside was more than enough to change how they saw Shu Kai and Tan Songyun forever. Because on that rainy night, fame didn't matter. Cameras didn't matter. All that mattered was a man waiting in the rain and the woman who finally came down to meet him. And for the neighbors who saw it, the memory would forever feel like watching a love story unfold not on their television screens, but right outside their very windows. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories that keep you on the edge of your seat.